2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
Grok Talk is brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at GraniteGrok.com, coming to you live almost every Saturday from 9 to 11 Eastern Time. And as you heard in the news read, of course, we are now available every day of the week from 9 to 11 at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, and NHCRTheRock.com. So no excuses for missing this or past programs. Lots of opportunity to listen to guests like our next one, President for Americans for Limited Government, and a longtime public affairs. I'm going to start over. I'm just... I got a little... Our next guest is the President of Americans for Limited Government and a longtime public affairs professional. Forget it. Rick Manning, welcome to the program.
Hey, how are you doing?
You know, I talk for 2 hours every day, and I'm just out of it. So, good morning.
Good morning. It's good to be with you. Whoever the heck I am.
Whoever the heck you are. Hang on, I got a little echo going on here. I gotta find it. All right, so echo or no echo. We're, I believe, talking about what did I just call it? The HUD Midwest Hustle. Apparently something very interesting is going on with Chicago and Dubuque, and it involves seizing property.
Yeah, it's what HUD's doing, and they've done it in Westchester County, New York, and now they're more distressing is they're now doing it in Dubuque, Iowa. And here's what they did. It's very simple. They declared Dubuque, Iowa, as being part of the Chicago region. Now, those of you who are familiar with maps know that Dubuque is in Iowa, not in Chicago. Dubuque is 200 miles from Chicago. But Dubuque has something that the Chicago residents wanted. They wanted Section 8 housing. And because Chicago had torn down a lot of the Section 8 housing in the most drug-infested areas, they did not have enough Section 8 housing. So the big idea was, let's export our users of Section 8 housing to Dubuque, Iowa, because Dubuque, Iowa makes the mistake of taking HUD community redevelopment funds. So they did it in a very sneaky way. They just declared, out of the blue, that Dubuque, Iowa was in the Chicago region. And they looked at the map and the demographics, and they said, Dubuque, Iowa doesn't look like Chicago. It doesn't have enough ethnic diversity. Consequently, to alleviate this, Dubuque, Iowa must build Section 8 housing, and HUD is going to tell them exactly where they're going to build it, and take over essentially the building of the infrastructure, not pay for it, mind you, but take over the zoning of the building of the infrastructure to support the new Section 8 housing to accommodate the people of Chicago we're going to move to Dubuque. All this is because the Obama administration has a theory that they are promoting where they are hoping to move people from low-income housing areas to places that don't have a lot of low-income housing, or at least they don't have a disproportionate amount of low-income housing, in an attempt to, their idea is the people's lives will be better because they're living in Dubuque rather than living in Chicago. Yeah. And they don't really care what the people of Dubuque think. They don't care what the people of Iowa think.
They don't care whether these people are employable in the local economy.
And they don't care if these people are employable in the local economy, correct. Now, the interesting part about this, beyond the obvious destruction of state and local government, which this accomplishes, is that they did a 15-year study prior to doing all this stuff and passing a regulation called the American, it's a Fair and Affordable Housing Act or something like that. But they passed a regulation that allows this to occur. But before that, they did a 15-year study to see if it would work by bringing people into environments where they weren't weren't familiar and plopping them in, would they succeed better than they did before? Ironically, the only thing that people who were put through this actually did better on is they had lower incidence of diabetes. Everything else, they were the same crime rate, the same number of people of joblessness, the same amount of people on welfare, the same, virtually every other metric, every metric that you would think might be impacted in terms of better economic quality of life failed. But they do have lower rates of diabetes, I guess.
Well, great. That'll cost us just a little bit less, but yeah. But hang on there. So you're bringing in people that don't work, that take government money, that commit crimes, and that their own quality of life is not improved significantly, but you're going to do it anyway. And on top of that, you're bringing in people that don't add anything to the local tax base, that are in housing that's subsidized, probably by the local tax base, and using infrastructure that the local tax base is paid for. So in other words, the locals pay more for everything, and the new residents basically don't contribute much.
That's absolutely correct. Essentially what HUD's doing from a federal government level is they're saying, we gave you community redevelopment grants, and now we're going to tell you how to use them. And we're going to take over not only your zoning, but we're going to put Section 8 housing, but we're also going to take over where you need to build infrastructure, what kind of infrastructure you need to build. Every aspect of local government is a normal function of what a city official or county official does gets taken over under this, because it's all built around accommodating this radical theory that they have of moving populations. And get this, being in New Hampshire, I'm sure you're aware that 200-mile radius puts you in the Boston, into Boston, and you become essentially a suburb of Boston, which many people in New Hampshire feel that you're becoming anyway. But but for all intents and purposes, from a federal government perspective, since state lines don't matter and city lines don't matter and county lines don't matter, all of New Hampshire can effectively be if Concord took community redevelopment grants, they could come in and say, okay, well, you've got to take this problem from Boston, and we're transplanting it to Concord, and you don't have anything you can say about it, and we're going to take over all your local zoning functions.
Skip?
Yeah, hi, Rick. This is Skip Murphy, and thanks for coming on the show. We've been writing about this for quite some time. We've got the same problem written small, called Granite State Futures, where basically one of the 9 regional planning commissions takes HUD money, and then we've stopped them several times in trying to federalize the local zoning laws. This is really an audacious example of what you're talking about in Dubuque, of administrative law gone crazy. And the problem I have is Julian Castro, who is the head of HUD right now in D.C., is also being rumored as a possible VP for the Hildebeest as she campaigns around. If she does get elected, can we basically say that state and local governments are toast?
I think if any Democrat gets elected, state and government is toast, state and local government is toast. I don't think it's restricted to Hillary, who may or may not survive the legal process. The bottom line is this is a radical theory that's designed to destroy local communities and to encapsulate them within the larger big city matrix. And it has nothing to do with really helping people, and everything to do with whether or not the federal government can control every aspect of our lives. And it's dangerous, and I think anybody who looks at Bernie Sanders can't exactly say, well, gee, if Bernie got elected, we'll be saved from this. The one thing that's happened is the good news on this. Let me give you some good news. The House has twice, in the last 2 years, passed a defund of the HUD's ability to implement this regulation. And each time it has not survived the omnibus process in terms of getting into the final bill. But momentum is growing dramatically as more and more places, as it's becoming clear that it's being implemented in more and more places. And not just Republican constituencies, but Democrat constituencies are saying, we don't like this. You're taking over our town, and we don't like it. And so we're building momentum to try to stop this thing. And And I believe that the people in New Hampshire should be talking to those presidential candidates and asking them, where are you in terms of stopping the federal government taking over our local communities? Because the four of those presidential candidates are walking around your streets are Republican candidates in the Senate, from the Senate, who ought to have a real voice in this, since we're getting stopped in the Senate time and time again.
Yeah, we have asked several of the presidential candidates, notably Carly Fiorina and Ted Cruz, on this, on the whole idea of the administrative state, which really is the end goal of the progressives, that basically take democracy right out of the whole picture. Do you agree with this, that what we're seeing is the height of the Alinsky haves to have-nots, as well as critical race theory, and that it really boils down to the reason why this is happening is because those that see racism behind every single tree blame whites for leaving the inner city and taking their tax money with them, and this is basically retribution against the haves. To be able to say, well, as long as you took your tax money away from those that need it, so you're being selfish to boot, we're going to turn the tables on you. So we're going to
I think that's
all over the place.
right.
Other than just cities, Dubuque, we're seeing this in California, in the Bay Area. Obviously, you talked about Westchester, which we've written about and had the county administrator on several times. But how fast do you think this is going to spread?
I think if we don't stop in this election cycle, it will be irretrievable. You have 4 years of this being government policy, and with full free reign to accomplish it. The damage that will be done in the hundreds and hundreds of communities that take community redevelopment grants, they will all be forced to be compelled to engage in this policy. I know Baltimore County they're doing it in Baltimore City, Baltimore County. So it's already happening because the regulations in place. And once it gets its firm clause into the system, they will have accomplished their goal, and they will accomplish their goal before there's another presidential election. So the time is now. We have to stop it now. Let me share with you a little bit on the race theory, because I think it's really at the core of it. The Senate confirmed a judge on Tuesday who wrote in the UCLA Law Review that people who want to get out of low-income housing, slums in the inner city, have as much right to the property in the suburbs as the people who purchased it, and that the purchase of property is effectively racist in its core. So, this is just confirmed as a federal judge in Minnesota, a very qualified woman who's met, checked all the boxes, and the ABA said she was extremely well qualified to be a federal judge. We just put this person on the bench for life. She's an up-and-comer who is preaching that private property itself is racist, and that people who live in Boston have an absolute right to come to Concord and take whatever they need to take, and government should be the force to do that. So, when you look at it, there's not relief in the courts because Obama's stacking the bench with these kind of thinkers. And once you lose the right of contract, the right of property, you have your last bit of freedom is gone. In fact, that is almost by definition slavery. So that's a fundamental assault that exists. This AFFH regulation is the tool they're using to accomplish this. And it's time for the Republicans to figure it out and say, we've got to stop this now. And one of the reasons we keep pushing on it with people like Stanley Kurtz and others, who's written a lot of great stuff about it, is that we see this as a fundamental assault on our basic federalist form of government and our core freedoms. And people don't even realize that it's happening because there's never been a vote on Congress on it affirmatively to do it. They're applying the Fair Housing Act from the 1960s and expanding it to apply this legal theory.
Okay, Rick, we're just about out of time. Thanks again so much for coming on. How do people reach you to continue to learn more about this or to support your efforts?
I would encourage everybody to get on netrightdaily.com. That's netrightdaily.com, and just subscribe, and you'll receive every weekday. You'll receive 2-3 unique articles that we come up with about different things like this that are occurring. And as critical points are occurring on this debate in Congress, we will let you know so you can let your congressman know. But in the meantime, tell the presidential candidates that they need to talk about this, that they need to stop it. That's the number one thing people in New Hampshire can do.
All right. Well, thanks so much for taking some time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
All right. You have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. That was Rick Manning from Americans for Limited Government. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Max Abramson for a legislative update.
Rock on.